Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Well, hey, good morning, everybody. Austin Clark here. I'm the host of the Multiply You podcast, where I talk with top business leaders in business. Some of them are in the home services space. Some of them are in different spaces. And we today have a really great friend of mine, Bret Larsen, who I'm so excited to be able to introduce. Bret and I, we go back not too long, but a little ways. And some of the things that he'll be able to share with you today as it pertains to marketing, I think that everyone will just really, really love. This episode, it's brought to you by Moxie Pest Control. One of my number one focuses right now, and Moxie's number one focuses right now, specifically in Arizona, is growth, and specifically growth via acquisition. So we grow via direct sales, we grow via acquisition, we grow via, organically, PPC, different sorts of things like that. But we're certainly looking to grow via acquisition. And so if you know anybody specifically in Arizona that has 3 or more vehicles on the road, that has a reputable brand, get them in contact with me. We have had so many success stories, especially in the last 12 to 18 months, where we have been able to help business owners in the pest space successfully exit out of the market. And I think that all of them, as they start to come on, and you'll be able to hear more time than they ever had. We paid more for their company than they ever thought they could get for it. And so it's been a really, really, really neat deal. They can text me directly at 480-254-9730, or they can email me at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. Don't go onto our national site and submit a form. It'll go to our national team. I'll never, ever get it. And so they can text me or call me directly at 480-254-9730. or at aclark@moxiepestcontrol.com. Here is Bret. He has just an incredible bio, driven to simplify healthcare delivery to everyone, everywhere. Bret Larsen founded eVisit in late 2014. His wife was 9 months pregnant with their second child. Bret, I don't need to tell you this. That is not a good time to start a company. And if you don't think so, I'll ask your wife and she'll tell us about that. Maybe we can talk more about that. Bret has led eVisit to become a market leader, facilitating more eVisits, remote patient encounters, than any other telemedicine platform combined, and enabling the largest health system in the US to change the way patient care is delivered. Over the last 6 years, eVisit has won the highly competitive Arizona Innovation Challenge and achieved significant year-over-year growth. At eVisit, Bret leads a group of 65 team members ranging in function from G&A, product and engineering, sales and marketing, and of course, client and customer success. Bret is an active participant in the community. He's previously served on the board of the Phoenix Business Marketing Association, as chairman of the ASU's Technology and Entrepreneurship Management Advisory Board, and mentored at-risk youth in the Boy Scouts of America program. Bret's currently a board member for Clean Router and mentors young entrepreneurs involved in Arizona State University's venture program. Bret and his work have been featured in publications such as Entrepreneur Inc., The Huffington Post, and TechCrunch. In 2018, Bret was a finalist for the Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year Award and was named one of the top 35 growth hackers by Goodman Lantern. Bret is most proud of his family and his wife. He and his wife Bree have been married for 13 years, have 3 sons: Cash, who's 8, Rand, who's 6, and Price, who is 2. Bret, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm good, Austin. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to connect. I always love talking with you.
Yeah, no, of course. So we go back a little ways. I always kind of like opening with just people's story, where they've been, where they are now, where they're going. And I wanted to share with all of our listeners that are out there, kind of my first time meeting with you. Obviously, you came so highly recommended from a really close mutual friend of ours. And he just essentially said, you have got to meet Bret. He is a marketing genius. He's amazing. He's all of these things that come to find out they were all true. And I said, great, let's do it. I was just coming back. I was shooting in the desert. I had camo pants on and a grungy, Saturday kind of shirt on. I said, yeah, let's set it up. He said, no, like we are meeting him now. Like we're going there now. I said, okay, well, so much for first impressions. Let's go. And so we went to your guys' space there in West Mesa, that big skyscraper there, in my camo pants. I'm surprised security didn't stop me in the door or at the door and frisk me. And that was incredible for me, because what unfolded, other than just instantly connecting with you, was your big whiteboard, your big grease board in the back, and you just spending a good 2 hours kind of laying out a marketing strategy that wasn't just for me in the pest space or you in the telemedicine space, but like we talked about earlier, marketing is marketing, and principles are principles. And so whether it's home service, whether it's SaaS, whether it's whatever, those principles work. And so that was my first exchange with Bret. We've been close ever since then, and been able to it's just been a great relationship. So Bret, tell us a little more about you. What's been some of your path? What's been some of your story?
Yeah, happy to. But you weren't underdressed. I think if you remember, I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans too. So I probably, if anything, I was like, wow, he dressed up for this.
Yeah.
So my background educationally is in accounting and marketing from ASU. I started in the accounting track, and my sophomore year, I started my first, I think, probably official business, which was a little e-commerce company selling. It just really was a pet project, because I love the creation process, and I love business. And so I thought, well, I'll start this up and see what happens. And so we were marketing, selling Arizona citrus out of the East Valley in Phoenix, nationwide. And as most businesses do, we struggled with growth. And so I started researching how to grow a company. And through a couple of mentors and people I connected with, I started learning how to do search engine optimization. And Arizona Orange Co. ended up growing like a pretty healthy click, over like a 412% compounded annual growth rate for 4 years in a row, from my sophomore year at ASU to just after my senior year, and ended up being acquired by a small family office that buys e-commerce companies and spins them up and out in their process, and multiplies them by 5 or 6. But through the process, I learned, it was my senior year at ASU. We had one of my core accounting courses, like a 400 class. We had a first year associate come in, and she was talking about what it was like at the big 4 accounting firms. And I walked out of the class thinking, if I've got to walk into one of those offices every day for the first year of my career, I'm going to be clinically depressed. And so I went to my guidance counselor that day, and was like, what can I do? I was 2 classes away from graduating with my degree in accounting. And they basically walked me through and said, look, if you switch all your electives over to marketing, you can switch to marketing. And being 2 classes away, I finished my accounting core. So I double majored, but I think I had to take those last 2 classes twice. I was so checked out from the accounting side. I was like, I got to the midterm on both of those and failed the midterm and realized I couldn't pass the class. So I dropped them and retook them. But yeah. So
clinical depression, just even thinking about it, it was already setting in,
Amen. So I left there. I sold Arizona Orange Company, and I knew I wanted to do it again, but I wasn't sure. Really, I wanted to do something that had a huge impact. The idea of putting a product that I'd built or that I'd concepted like into the pocket of every single person in the world was and is still really compelling. And the fact that we can do it with a really strong social mission is fun. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, other than the fact that I didn't want to be in education. I didn't want to be in healthcare. And so, of course, I took a job as marketing manager, employee number 6 at a company called Stat Doctors in healthcare. That was developing a new health tech service offering, where as a consumer or an employee of a company, you could access a physician 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and really drive more simplified access to care and help companies save costs on their health plans. Because most employees, when they're sick, go to the urgent care ER, and it costs employers $1,500 instead of $85 that it would cost them if they went to the primary care office. And my time there was spent in patient-facing marketing, educating them about the service and trying to get them to sign up. And at the same time in the market, Uber was becoming a really big deal. And there was already a lot of noise. It was mostly their black car service that was gaining traction from a word of mouth perspective. They didn't have UberX yet. And one of the things I started recognizing, there's a lot of noise happening from the taxi cab industry already about what Uber was doing to their business. And I thought, there's a pretty interesting analog between the transportation industry and healthcare, because the market leader at the time, and still is on the service side of telemedicine, is Teladoc. And I just thought, if Teladoc is successful, this was back in 2011, 2012, they will do to healthcare what Uber's done to the taxi cab industry. But in that case, I thought it was actually quite dangerous, that disconnecting patients from their doctor and sending them to a call center in New York or Texas or wherever they're located would actually result in diminishing patient outcomes. And so I went to the executive team and I said, hey, look, we should pivot. Like, there's an interesting opportunity here. Let's get rid of the physician network. Let's just be the software, and we'll help large health systems or small doctors' practices accelerate their virtual strategy and e-commerceify their business. And the feedback I got was really interesting, Brett. We're not going to do that. We need to stay focused. And I think it was about 2 weeks later, I just kept chewing on it. I couldn't let it go. I went back and I said, if you guys aren't going to do this, I had a non-compete in place, so I waited that out. In between of waiting that out, I spent about a year with a venture capital firm on the consulting side of that group, helping close to 80 or 90 companies define the category of one that they were operating in. So define like what was their unique differentiator. You look at like BMW and Lexus, they sell the same product, but they market to very different consumers. Like BMW, ultimate driving machine. Lexus is the pursuit of perfection, right? It's high luxury versus high performance. And so the same product, different buyers. And so that I help companies define that and then develop their go-to-market strategies and execute on those. And then I was recruited over to a company called Campus Logic by a founder named Greg Scoresby to build out his marketing team. He was just transitioning out of product development into go-to-market. I was their first marketing hire, came on, helped to kind of reposition the brand and develop early strategies to get in front of their buyer and accelerate their go-to-market. And we had a lot of fun. I was only there 6 months. Greg knew what I was doing with eVisit and what my goals were. I expected to be there longer, but it happened faster than I thought they would. And so I left in November of 2014. My wife was 9 months pregnant with our second. And I figured if I could talk her into me leaving the job that had been the most lucrative that I'd ever been at, with the best benefits I'd ever had, that changing the world through telemedicine would be quite easy. And it's turned out that it's not been, but it's been super interesting, very challenging, very rewarding. And over the last 6 years, we've grown from a startup with, me, my co-founder, Miles Romney, our CTO, a handful of team members around the table, to winning some of the largest health system contracts in the country and helping them simplify the way they deliver care to their customer.
And there's so many questions that I have, and we have to touch a little bit about kind of the current climate with telemedicine. But you're right. If you can go to your pregnant wife at 9 months and make that sale, you can sell anything. Sweetie, I know we're 9 months pregnant. I know any money we have in the bank, I'm going to take that and invest that. I know I'm going to trade my secure job and salary and my 40-hour, 50-hour work week for a 100-hour work week and no salary. You can sell anything and do anything. And you're an incredible salesperson too. So we have to talk just a little bit more. I know we want to really focus on marketing, but things have changed for the world, Bret. Here we are. It's the very first week of January in 2021. 2020, it doesn't matter who you are, what space you're in, where you are geographically throughout the world. It has been an interesting year, and a very positive year, an interesting year for you. And so when I think, I know nothing about telemedicine other than the experiences that I've had with traditional medicine, and then most recently, right? And there is such an opportunity, and you're very forward thinking. And so you saw this a decade before most people did, but you think about your traditional, whatever, checkup, doctor's visit. You leave your house, you get in your car, you schedule an appointment that's weeks out because doctors are so backed up or whatever it might be. You sit in a waiting room that you don't want to sit in. You fill out a stack of paperwork that's this big. It's like you're buying a home. They ask you the same questions over and over and over and over and over, just to be able to spend 2 minutes or 3 minutes with a doctor to be able to say, oh yeah, here's your prescription. This is what's whatever. And so you, just like in the taxi cab industry, as Uber and Lyft and whoever else has done, have just disrupted that. How now you guys have been growing and scaling significantly since inception and eVisit's founding, but tell us a little bit about 2020 and how 2020 has changed your business, what you guys are doing. I mean, what's been going on the last year?
Great question. I think one of the things that we're most excited about at eVisit is the fact that we're in a position to help during this time. I think when things go wrong, most people want to help. And with the pandemic hitting this year, a lot of people were left wondering how. Like they're trying to figure out their own lives, much less trying to make an impact on more than them and their family, which is the first priority for everyone. For us, it was for me and the team, it was really nice to be in a position where all the work we'd done over the last 5 years, leading up to the pandemic, had set us up to be in a position to have a big impact. I won't say that it changed the business from a growth perspective. Like we were growing steadily, not wildly, but steadily, but it accelerated the adoption in healthcare. We went from trying to convince health systems that virtual care needed to be a part of their care delivery strategy to all of a sudden everyone became a buyer, like today, like yesterday, versus 9 to 15 month sales cycles, collaboratively working with 12 plus decision makers across multi-billion-dollar health systems, helping define their strategy, planning the rollout, and then like contracting alone is 3 months as you get through security and compliance checks. So it really just got people laser focused on what they needed to do to support their communities and helped accelerate the decision-making process. But if you look at healthcare, and it should be this way when it comes to healthcare, it's got to be deliberate. Like you're dealing with people's lives. And so the advancements that happen in healthcare typically take a lot longer. If you look at the advent of the thermometer, it was 80 years before that technology was used, after it was developed. And doctors were still checking temperatures using the back of their hand. The mantra in healthcare is do no harm. And so when new technologies come on, as it should be, there's a lot of thing and evidence-based work that happens to make it advanced. You look at like the adoption of electronic health records, the core billing system for health systems. It took years, and finally the government saying, hey, if you don't adopt this, we're going to penalize you. And so that's what created the rush to adopt that, because they didn't want penalty. And so in this case, it was the pandemic that's accelerated the utilization of technology like telehealth and remote patient monitoring. I think it'll have broader impacts on how artificial intelligence is applied to patient diagnosis and care. But it really is, it's forcing us as a healthcare industry to be more deliberate about how we architect the patient experience. It's actually turning patients into consumers, where it's a proactive relationship rather than a reactive.
Well, and you said so many meaningful things there, and again, because of your forward thinking, your team's dedication and hard work over the last, nearing decade now, it's put you in a position to be able to not just capitalize, but provide a service that is so valuable, right? So you and I were both relatively healthy, and for you and I to go to a doctor's office right now, probably not that big of a deal. But what about grandma, grandpa? What about the uncle that has a pre-existing condition or diabetes or whatever else? Being in a doctor's office is probably not the best place for that person to be right now, right? Today, as we speak, I am very far away from my house and home, and I was able via a telemedicine visit have a prescription filled. on a Zoom type. I mean, look at you and I right now, right? How are we communicating? And so it's just made it, it's transitioned it from, oh, Bret, hey, that's a good idea. Maybe in a year or 3 years, it's like, Bret, how do we do this now? How do we do this right now? And it's been incredible, man. And just watch you and see the things that you and your team have done. It's so cool. Okay, marketing. I think that this is one of your passions. You're incredibly well versed, capable. I think that you're part of that way because you're just a student of really anything that you set your mind to. Lots of trial and error, right? Lots of trial and error. How, for the people that are listening, whether it's home services, whatever kind of company they've got, SaaS, whatever, how does someone approach a marketing plan? And how, if they've already got a plan in place and it's working, what are some things that they could do to be able to enhance that, capitalize quickly? I mean, where does someone begin?
Yeah. So I think really, if you go back to the core foundational marketing questions, it's product, place, price, and promotion, right? In the marketing, we call it the 4 Ps. And I think, I think you get to a point where you think about that naturally. You find a product or a service that you're passionate about, or that you see potential in. And then a lot of it, like for most business owners, I think a lot of those things start to gather naturally, or they start to solve those questions more naturally. But when you can get pretty deliberate about it, I think one of the fallacies I believe in marketing is that you would market differently for a service-based business than you would for a software or technology business. The tactics may be different, but the core foundational approach is the same. I like to think about like every buyer is a consumer, right? Like I may be buying on behalf of an organization, but I'm still making a consumer-oriented decision. And so identifying who your buyer is, what's important to them, are key components to how you craft your product or service, which is all marketing. And then figuring out how you get out in front of your market, consistently remain relevant and deliver on the brand promise. So, I mean, there's a lot of foundational stuff you can go through around brand and positioning statements and how that leads into your messaging. I would say a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs kind of work their way through that. They realize they need to put out a flyer or an ad on Google or like messaging on their website and start to develop that stuff more organically. But it all flows through to how do you position yourself? What are your different? How do you become that category of one? I can't count how many pest control companies there are in Phoenix, but I know of a few.
1,200.
1,200. Okay, so 1,200.
And those are the registered ones.
Yeah, and I maybe know of 4, right? Why do I know those 4? Because they've defined themselves as in a certain category. Some are high end, some are not. Some focus on scorpions, some focus on rodents. Like they've specialized themselves to get their foot in the door. They can expand the services from there, but then they develop a messaging track that starts to build a brand. And just on average, if you look at consumers, it takes between 12 and 18 touches for your brand to start to resonate with me, for me to trust you. So those touches need to be deliberate and specific. You need to make sure that the messaging is consistent, that you show up well. I mean, it's like any other first impression. You wouldn't, you wouldn't show up to get married in overalls without a t-shirt on. Most of us wouldn't. Just like you want to make sure that when you actually get out to your consumer for the first time, they're hearing one message, and the next time they're hearing a very similar, if not the same message. And so the way you get out in front of them is what's different. But all the foundational stuff tends to be pretty much the same.
I have no idea how you knew what I was wearing on my wedding day. You guessed that perfectly.
You looked good.
Yeah. Those overalls, Well, that's incredible. I mean, what are some of the things that you see companies, whether they're just starting or whether they've been around for a while, what are some of the mistakes that you see like all of the time? Like, look, whenever I go and consult, whenever I look at a brand or a company or a marketing strategy, what do people do wrong regularly?
I think there's probably a few things. One is there's no strategy or plan, and without a strategy or plan, you can't define what success looks like or doesn't look like. I see a lot of them. It's more like a shotgun where they're like, okay, we're gonna try. This is slightly outdated and probably we never had the budget for this. Like we're gonna try TV ads, right? And they may try one, and if it doesn't make a return immediately, then they back off from that, because most of us are extremely bootstrapped when we start our businesses, and most of us can't afford to invest a year's worth of budget on showing up on channel 12 or whatever channel you're trying to get on.
You don't go straight to the Super Bowl ad, right?
Times a day, right? So they'll try one thing and then they won't see results and they'll pull back. That's another one that I see. And then a third one is just not not having a plan, trying something and pulling back very quickly, and then trying to do it all themselves. So all those things, there are constraints around building a business, just like anything else in life. But I find that if you can get the right framework in place and look at stack rank the tactics that you're driving at to see which ones are designed to have an immediate impact and what's going to get my quickest return on investment versus which ones are more of a long-term play that I need to invest in, but I know I'm not going to get there today. When you and I work together, you mentioned, like, hey, we've tried SEO, we've tried PPC, and we haven't seen it work. Like what you and I talked about was how long did we do it for? Who was doing it? What was their approach? How did they go about it? Like, there's a lot of questions that go in there, but I always tell people who I speak with or who are curious about that, like search engine optimization, for example, has gotten very competitive. When I started doing it in 2008, people knew about it, but it wasn't a science as much as it is today. And I did the on-page SEO for Arizona Orange Company, and we were on page 1 within 3 weeks. Right? That's not how it works today in most industries. If you market, you could be marketing manure online effectively, and if you can be page 1, you're gonna see success. So SEO is a long-term strategy. There's content strategy behind it. You want to start developing information to consistently get out there and provide value. And then PPC, on the other hand, gives you a pretty immediate, like the buyers further down the funnel, if they're searching for pest control services that can start tomorrow, they're buying today. And so you can typically see a higher return. But even with all those things, you should be measuring, like have the specific metrics that you need to measure to understand how it's performing. And if it's not performing, you can pinpoint and start to A/B test your way into performing.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because as we were, I think this was, I don't know, maybe 3 years, 2 years or so ago, we just weren't having the results that I knew that we could be having. And so just as you said, I wasn't doing all of it alone, and we have another internal firm, right, that we work with that helps us to do some of those things. But I was stuck, and I'm like, man, who can I go to that could help? And you were tremendously helpful with that, and in being very deliberate about the approach. And so I like a lot of the things that you've said is, look, this needs to be more of a rifle and specific approach rather than a shotgun scattered type approach. So who is your ideal customer? Where are they? And it doesn't just mean that you have one ideal customer. For us in Phoenix, for example, in the pest space, it could be a stay-at-home. It could be your wife, stay-at-home mom, couple kids at home, husband's working 100 hours a day, doesn't have time to do some of those things, right? And so they hire a pest company or a pool company or what. It could be the retired couple that couple, they just said, hey, we've done our mowing our lawn, pulling our weeds, spraying our bugs, and now Saturday I'm golfing or I'm going to the pool or I'm whatever, right? And so there's not just one, but you need to be deliberate about who that is. The other thing that you said and that you've helped me out with for years is that A/B testing. Just because you do something once and it doesn't give you the results that you want, it doesn't mean that is not a winning strategy, right? As much as I would love to go to the gym once and feel the way I want to feel, look the way I want to work, doesn't work that way, right? And so it is that constant pressure over a long period of time, and that's more the SEO play, like you said. The PPC is a little bit more, you get some of those results. What are some of the things, Bret? I mean, with you being just really deep into this space, do you see anything on the horizon? Do you see other social? I mean, TikTok is becoming really hot right now. Instagram has kind of replaced Facebook, but there's still tons of value in Facebook, especially as you think about that type of user and that demographic, right? And YouTube is an incredible platform. Are there any others that are out there? And those are just the digital ones, right? We haven't talked about some of the more traditional um, avenues that still work, like direct mail, those billboards, those kinds of things. But do you see anything on the horizon that is interesting or kind of piques your interest, or that could be a good thing?
That's a great question. Before I answer that, I'll say that I think it's important to recognize too that I don't know anyone who started out with an ideal buyer in mind where that didn't shift. Like you learn things. And if you look at eVisit as an example, we started out selling to anyone who had a credit card and $99 a month. Now we're focused exclusively. We don't sell to those buyers anymore for various reasons, but now we're focused on the largest health system in the country that are spending have budgets for millions of dollars. And it's because of the scope and the impact they have and the strategy they put behind it. To answer your question, I think the key is identifying where your consumer spends their time and investing in creating awareness in those places, not once, like consistently. But I think one of the most interesting advances that I've seen, and that if I were building more of a consumer focused organization and my buyers here consistently, and I could pinpoint them, Hulu about maybe 9 months to a year ago started allowing you to purchase airtime for commercials, which is really interesting, right? Like your ability, I don't know how many people still subscribe to cable or satellite, or like we haven't done it for years. We click on Hulu, and if there's a specific channel that we like, we'll subscribe to that one specifically. But I don't need 700 channels on my TV. So where are your consumers spending their time, and if you can get in front of them consistently, Hulu is a great one. I think even more interesting is how you use tracking mechanisms that are available to marketers today. If someone has hit your property, like a website, on their phone or their computer, you can start to retarget them with video ads, with banner ads. Like that accelerates the number of touch points that you get to get in front of your consumer, and it's targeted because they've already interacted with you at some level. If they've come to your website, they were aware in some way, shape, or form. Now you can reinforce your messaging just to them and not to everyone who hits the front page of the New York Times. Right? It's really interesting for small businesses because you don't have to go take out a billboard on the 101 or the 2. You can talk to exactly who knows who you are.
I love that. We talked kind of before we went live, Bret, but we talked about in the space that I'm in, that you're in, really point at any brick and mortar as you drive down the road, or just any business that you can think of. The bar is there. There's certainly companies out there doing great things, but for the most part, the bar is very, very low in most industries. What are some of the things that you see or you would recommend that companies just do or start to do to be competitive or differentiate?
That's a great question. I think the example I used was we had a leak. We had a leak in our bathroom, like our behind our shower, started leaking in the wall. So we called our insurance company. They came out. They tore the drywall out. They figured out it was wrong. We got a payment policy to have it redone. And like we can't get the plumber to show up, right? We can't get the plumber to show up to fix it, which means we can't get the renovation group to show up to remodel it. We can't, like, the bar is so low. And I think when you look at creating a service or a business, it's how do you differentiate? Why should someone go with Moxie versus AJ Pest Control down the street, right? Moxie provides a certain experience. They come when they say they're going to come. They show up clean shaven, well dressed. They do the work they're supposed to do. They're detail oriented. they get a survey afterwards. Like it's very, you've architected a very deliberate experience. I think for most business owners or service providers, if you can architect that in such a way where you do what you say you're going to do, you're going to do it. And if all you did was do that and add a phone call 3 days after the service was delivered to see how satisfied your customer was, you would stand heads and shoulders above 1,000% of the rest of people who are doing it. And you start to build like brand recognition, and people refer you by name because it's fairly unique today to get an experience like that, rather than some guys just crawled out of bed and knew he had to come to work and did it because he needs a paycheck. And like it's just, I feel like the experience you create for your consumers is why you buy it. Why do you buy a $2,000 MacBook like from Apple when you can get a better computer from Hewlett Packard, a more powerful computer, I should say, for $500, right? Like it's the experience that Apple provides. It's the interactions, it's the design. It doesn't make any sense. Logically, I should go with a cheaper computer that's more powerful. I don't, right?
Well, and I love that you bring up Apple. It's such a globally recognized brand, right? And we're all guilty of this, anyone that's ever bought an Apple product. But I mean, I'll speak for me, I will save their boxes like an idiot. And I'll go to my closet or wherever I keep my Apple boxes. And then, 5 years later, when I get another one or whenever, I'll go there and be like, oh, I'm glad I didn't need this. But like, it felt so good. It looked so good. The packaging I felt bad about throwing it away. I'm like, I wouldn't do that to that box. It's so good. It's so beautiful. And so,
that's crazy.
Yeah. And, consumers, they want three things. They want a lot of things, but they want three things. And this pertains to marketing. And as a business, you can only choose two. Consumers, they want it fast. They want the best or the best quality, and they want it cheap. So which two, as a business, Moxie, eVisit, Apple, whoever, is it going to be, right? And so you've decided that for your firm. We've decided that for ours. And anyone wondering, right? It is quality, which is not cheap. So cheap's out, and it's fast. Consumers today, they want it right now. They want it right now. It's the Amazon effect. And so so many people play the cheap game, and they just shouldn't, because the cheap game, there's no budget left over. There's no, all those things that you want to do that are important, like marketing. There's not budget left over for that because it's cheap. Incredible. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing some of those thoughts, Bret. I always like to ask, kind of as we're wrapping a few things up, but it's always interesting to me to be able to rub shoulders with such high performers, focused people, educated people, bright people. Where do people, Bret, like you, go or turn? So you're formally educated. You went to ASU. You've done all that thing. You have a lot of great experience. But I mean, now today, how does a guy like you get education? I mean, who do you reach out to for help or assistance as you get stuck or get into a situation that you've never been in before? What books do you read? How do you continue to evolve yourself and just improve your mind and improve your education so that you can be the best that you can be, so that you can serve your people and serve your clients?
Good question. I think first of all, I think it's important that you surround yourself with people who challenge you. I early on, actually, I think I was at ASU. I read a book that talked about, like, you need to surround yourself with people you want to become like, right? Because you should be challenged. If you're not being challenged, you're not growing. And so over the years, I've built up a personal board. Like, it's not formalized. I didn't ask anyone to join my board, but there are individuals that I go to who I can trust, who I know will tell me things as they see it, who aren't going to be nice to me just because they like me, and who challenge me. And I'm fortunate enough, one of them is one of my board members, Kurt Roberts. He led the financing of our seed round. He's a partner at Kickstart Seed Fund. They do venture funding and Series C deal. Another one is a guy named Greg Scorsese. He's the founder of Logic. I worked for him for about 6 months. I wish it had been longer. The most capable talented CEO that I got to work with, and I didn't get enough time watching and learning from him. I would have liked to. And I started eVisit when I was 28, and I didn't know anything. I knew I wanted to do something big, but I didn't know. I figured I just figured out as I go along. I think most of us do. I hired a coach about 3 years ago, an executive coach that would challenge me professionally and succeed with my team and figure out where my strengths and weaknesses were and how to neutralize weaknesses and play to the strengths. I'm fortunate to have an executive team at eVisit who I can rely on and be pretty vulnerable with. Like my CFO is second to none. He always challenges me and made me a better CEO and a better person, frankly. Like my co-founder, Miles Romney, more than anything, like I'm really fortunate to have an amazing wife. She's so level-headed. She's another coach I have. When I'm working through something, I'll go to her and she brings like a level of clarity. Like I'm always surprised, and half the time I walk away thinking like, you should be running this company. And you know, I don't think she has those aspirations, but like she's so level-headed, unemotional about things, and it really just gives good clarity. And then I go in and out of really in-depth. Like I'll spend like some years I'll read 52 books, like 52 business-related books that are ranging from like this year on my pocket is Shoe God by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. Elon Musk's book. I've got a new one from Ben Andreessen, Ben Horowitz, one of those guys from Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, Ben Horowitz. Yep.
Yeah, yep. And a few others that it's on the pocket this year. But for me, I'll read a bunch and assimilate, and then I take a breather from that, so I can start to apply the things that made sense and like iterate on like what is or isn't working in the way that I show up. And as you grow your business, I mean, you know what this is like, Austin. When you're 3 people, the type of leader that your organization needs is totally different than when you grow to 12, and different again when you go to 25, and then again when you're at 65. And it evolves and it evolves, and you have to evolve. If you're going to stay at that organization, you have to evolve. And maybe you don't want to. Like that's another decision that all of us have to make at some point. Like maybe I don't want to be the CEO when we're 1,000 people. Maybe I'd rather be like a director or a VP of marketing. Maybe I'd rather be on the product team. Maybe I'd rather be selling. Like I don't know what that'll look like, but one of the things I've loved about eVisit is it's, there's never a day where I don't feel pressured and challenged, like to grow. Like there's always a new opportunity to solve for. There's always something to be worked through. And that's something that like I need to feel.
No, I love that. And I think that to sum up the last part of what you said, that's flow, right? There's no, sense of accomplishment in beating an 8-year-old in basketball. And it also doesn't feel good to go and play with the best recruits in college and play a pickup game with them against basketball. You would annihilate that 8-year-old, right? And then you would be annihilated. And so whatever our current skill set is, the challenge needs to be just above, not so much where we're overwhelmed and certainly not below, but just above to help us to be able to reach, and back to what you were saying earlier, whether it's true or not, but it's been said is, you are the sum of the 5 people that you associate with the most. And so what do you want? Do you want to be a millionaire? If that's the case, then, then you should start to think like that and start to associate with that. Do you want to have more gratitude? Well, the people that you hang out with, they're the most ungrateful people. And I'm not saying you or me, but if they're the most ungrateful people out there, then that's not really going to be becoming or rub off on you too well. And so, it's really neat. Anything that you're reading right now or anything that you're really digging, whether it's an article or whether you're listening to something or reading something currently?
I'm not reading anything right now. We the last 6 months at eVisit have been about closing a new round of financing, and we've hired. Beginning of last year we had 23 team members. Today we're at 65, and it's been all I can do to make sure I'm home for dinner before I have to jump back on. So 2021 for me is a year where I can refocus on like my personal development, like how I show up as a leader of the organization and what I'm learning and how I'm being challenged. I actually hate answering it that way because I wish I had something that I had been following over the last 6 months or so, but work's been crazy.
Well, and as far as team members go, don't stop there. What were you telling me earlier? I mean, 20 something in the beginning of the year, 65 now. What does June of this year look like?
We're on track to be around, by plan, around 120 people. We're going to try to roll that
in 6 months. Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, it doesn't matter what business you're in. Like, the advice I'd give is like, surround yourself with people who are going to make you think bigger. Like, it depends on what your goals are. Like, if you want a lifestyle business where you can, like, that's fine. There's nothing, people say that like it's a dirty word. It's not. Like, it's, what do you want? I've never wanted a lifestyle business. Like, I'll have a lifestyle at some point, but I've always wanted to do something with huge impact. And so if you surround yourself with people who are looking to create that impact, it doesn't matter if you're in janitorial services or if you're selling gold bars. Like, it can be small, it can be big, and it all starts up here. Like, it all starts with the vision that you create and how many people you can get to buy in with that vision and believe that it's possible, because that's when it starts becoming reality. I was reflecting over the holiday break about, if I could go back and do it again, what are some things that I'd change? And one of the things I felt like we did right, there are a lot of things I'd change, like tons. I won't even dive into it, but one of the things I think we did right is we hired salespeople really early on, which was a forcing mechanism. Like, when you hire someone to sell something and they sell it, you have to deliver. Like, you don't have a choice. If you want to keep the money that you've just traded for the service or the good, you have to deliver on it. And it's an accelerating process. So I next time I would be more deliberate about putting myself in situations that were forcing mechanisms where you had to get something done because something else had happened. And hiring team members is a great forcing mechanism. It forces you.
Put your back up against the wall, right? Bret, thank you so much for being on. As usual, so generous with your extremely valuable and limited time. Thank you, for the counsel. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for sharing some of your experiences with me and with everyone that's listening. I know that we'll have you on again. If people need or want to find you, get a hold of you, are you on Twitter? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Instagram? If people needed to reach out, or how could they do that?
Yeah, I'm on. They can follow me on Twitter. My handle's Bret A. Larsen. They'll be one of like 3, so that'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. Send it to all 3, and one of them's bound to hit you.
Yeah, amen.
That's great. Bret, thanks again. Appreciate having you on. We'll catch up again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.